One of the themes that I take up in Comrade concerns this strange antinomy or division that we encounter in contemporary left, left fora, whether or not it's activist fora or online, or art circles or university circles or what have you. And that's this division between survivors and systems. So on the one hand, it seems like we encounter in contemporary politics a lot of emphasis on the struggle to survive, on saying like, I can't do anything until I meet my own survival needs, or, at this point, just surviving is its own victory, surviving day to day, like that's the goal. If I've survived, then I've won. So you can see how the language of survival ends up being kind of individualist, if I've survived. But it's more than that. I mean, it's clear that the intensification of capitalist inequality and exploitation and competition under, what goes under as neoliberalism or precarity capitalism, it really has made the struggle to survive much harder than it was for the generations who were able to benefit from the working class victories to achieve some parts of a social welfare state. So the issues around everyday survival are real. But the problem is to think that that's what politics is, or that's enough for politics, or that politics is itself just a matter of survival. I mean, politics is about struggling for the conditions to make our survival better, to make so that we survive not at the expense of others. It's actually to make sure that we can have a system of flourishing and freedom and emancipation. Like survival is such a it's such a small goal. I mean, yes, it's important, but we got to fight for justice, right? We have to fight for more than that. During one of the things that we talked about last summer, the summer of 2020, was the anti-police protests cured COVID. Now that's a sort of slang or abbreviation for thinking about how, in the midst of the pandemic, there was the largest set of demonstrations that have ever happened in the United States. Over 35 million people were out in the streets protesting the police murders of George Floyd and so many others. And the fear of the virus went away. Right. It was like clearly just surviving, right, in your own little house, with your own little, unit, trying to fear infection. That wasn't enough. The struggle for justice was more important. So, but one of the things that we're told, or that we find ourselves confined in these days, is a sense that, oh no, survival is itself. That's the politics. Well, it's not. Survival is not the politics. And the other side of this preoccupation with survival is actually a preoccupation with systems, which is like the system of capitalism, the system of algorithms, the system of the internet, the larger systemic features that go on around us, like somewhat, the Anthropocene, right? Climate change. Some people would even say, bring in things like, galaxies and geology and all the massive interplanetary gravitational systems. And the thing about the system language is that it also has this effect of erasing the political element, right? Which is actually, it's our organized struggle that can change and impact the systems. It's the systems are not independent of our organized political struggle. They react to them, they shape them, their environments for them. They themselves are changed and conditioned by them. I mean, maybe not the galactic system, but clearly the capitalist system, the economic system, climate change, so-called Anthropocene. All of these kinds of systems are also impacted and influenced by politics. When we let the language of systems on the one side, or the language of survivors, dominate our thinking, we erase or occlude or block from our frame of reference the fact of political struggle. And that's what I'm trying to open up in Comrade, is the fact that our engagement with each other as comrades on the same side of a political struggle is crucial for going forward. And we don't have the space for doing that if our analyses are limited to systems or survivors. I present the comrade as a figure that is generic and universal. When I say generic, it means that it doesn't refer to someone in a way that specifies their race or their gender or their nationality. And sometimes people are skeptical. They're like, well, wait a minute, isn't really comrade just a figure of, white European masculinity? And that's actually like a really terrible suspicion, because it totally erases the heroic contributions of comrades from all over the world for hundreds and hundreds of years. Right? I mean, it acts as if there was not a revolution in China or Vietnam or Korea or Cuba, or the struggles in Africa and other parts of Asia and Southeast Asia for liberation. It acts as if there have not been women comrades fiercely engaged from the very beginning. So I think we have to really resist this idea that a generic term like comrade is somehow secretly not generic, like somehow secretly already partial to a gender or a race, because it's just not that way. It has not been the case that real existing comrades, real existing fighters in struggle have been confined to just one race or just one sex. When we recognize this, we also demonstrate our continued solidarity with our comrades who have passed, right? With their heroism, with their sacrifice. I mean, it always strikes me when people say things like, well, isn't it just like communism is a term that people don't like, and like maybe we should just like rebrand it and not say communist anymore, or not say words like comrade because they sound too communist, and isn't like doesn't it have too much of a bad rep, and isn't it sort of off-putting? Like, when people say that, it's like they're betraying the legacy of millions of people, right? They're dishonoring millions of people who fought and died, who gave their lives for an emancipatory, egalitarian struggle for a better world, right? To rid the world of exploitation and oppression, right? It's like if we don't recognize the struggles of communists from all over the world throughout our past as heroic struggles, if we don't honor those, I would just say that we've given up, right? But we need to anchor our struggle in those struggles and recognize, yes, there were mistakes, and there were defeats, and there was also dedication. And part of being a comrade is also to extend comradeship to the comrades that came before us, as well as to generations in the future. So to my Brazilian camaradas, thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy the book Camarada. In a lot of places in the US, it stimulated reading groups and discussions, and actually become itself a small mechanism to help people reinvigorate their sense of comradeship, and maybe in some places to install a sense of comradeship where there wasn't one before. So I hope you enjoyed the book, and that you are able to talk about it and discuss it with friends and new camaradas.